Yat A, and welcome back to Inside an Indian Country, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Wes Benally, National Travel Practice Leader at REW. Today, I'm honored to welcome John James, Chief Executive Officer of Navajo Nation Gaming Enterprise. John brings more than 2 decades of experience leading travel gaming operations across multiple states and now serving as CEO of NNGE. With his extensive background guiding travel casinos through periods of transformation and growth, John offers valuable insights on where the industry is heading. Welcome to the podcast, John.
Thank you, Wesley. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited about this, and I'm ready to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about these topics.
Hey, thank you for jumping on, John. Well, so you've led various gaming operations across multiple states in your career, including California, Washington, Arizona. I think even Florida, New York is probably in there. What what are some of the significant changes that you've seen in travel gaming over the past decade? And what are you, in back of your mind, kind of preparing for, moving forward?
That's a great question. I think what I've seen over the last decades and things on travel gaming, specifically on travel gaming, when you look at the brick and mortar of the casinos, I think speed matters. I think being agile, being very flexible, and just keep rolling with the evolving normal, right? I mean, I think things change every single day, and it behooves us to pay attention to the growing markets, the market segmentation. As the consumer's preferences change, we got to be on top of it. And that's how you stay on top of the game, is making sure that you market all aspects, every piece of the business, and nothing gets neglected. The old days they would say, "Don't sweat the small stuff. Don't worry about the ancillary, entities of a casino resort." And I say, you know what? That's not so true. Every aspect of every piece of business of an operation matters, and consumers see it. They're not dumb. They understand what their propensities for gaming is, what their entertainment looks like, what their fair share of their wallet looks like. So I'm very excited about it, and I see a lot of things keep moving along in the industry, and I do see the preferences that are changing. Like in the bygone days, racing sports was just like it was a 3% industry. That's it. But as betting technology has changed, you can bet on whether the pitcher throws a head on the floor, whether he spits tobacco across. I mean, there's all kinds of proposition bets, which made it more advantageous for players to consume those type of product lines and descriptions. For example, right now there's a lot of discussion out there about online gaming, cashless systems. Online is really significant out there, and the tribes need to pay attention to it because they built these beautiful palaces of brick and mortar, and we don't want that to deteriorate by people that are just operating out of a vacuum, that just operate out of websites and file server systems located in different places without spending money on a brick and mortar. I mean, brick and mortar is important because the consumer really gets their full entertainment experience. I mean, it's that when you walk into these properties, Wes, it's amazing. I mean, I get thrilled about the excitement of walking on each and every property anywhere in the United States because everything is very unique and very different.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's been a common theme about, just really, with respect to online gaming versus the brick and mortar type of facilities is that, you can't beat the experience. And that's what people want to basically have, get away from work, get away from the kids,
Right, right.
yeah, yeah. And so,
Yeah.
and having, the online gaming component, it's obviously convenient, but, is it really going to drive, that experience that, is there? And I remember, one of our conversations we had is that, you mentioned that I asked you about that. It's like, okay, what do we think about online gaming? Like, I'm, kind of nervous about it and whatnot. And, and I think it kind of dwindled into like, like machines and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I think you mentioned like Wes, nothing beats a warming welcome into a facility and a smile. That's what people are kind of after, and so I'm really glad that, you had brought that up. That's, then I thought about that, and it really is something that really does make a difference.
It's interesting because over time, and you look at, you go to concert venues stuff, people just like being around people, and you can't get that sitting in the living room and playing games. And I mean, for some people, that's it's a cookie cutter experience for them, but there's nothing more exhilarating and exciting than being in a live atmosphere of gaming. And I've always felt that since the day I walked on the gaming planet. Back in 1983, my first experience when I worked at the Desert Inn, it was so exciting to be around people. It was so exciting to be around gaming environment. You can hear the roulette wheel spinning. You can hear players screaming at the craps table. People winning on 21. It was really a great experience. And you see a celebrity walking across the floor, and people saying, "Oh, look at that celebrity," and they're there live, and without bodyguards walking around, just their showroom managers shaking hands, and it was just a wonderful experience. And I still see some of that happening on a lot of other properties, and it's really great to see that we're keep evolving in that way.
Yeah, yeah, no. So if you could provide our listeners just in your mind, when you're and as CEO, you're dealing with different sizes of properties, right? You have different, you have one that's a large, type of casino resort. Then you have other ones that are, just smaller, slot type of, experience. But, those are the ones that, it's not all glam, if you will, but, maybe just provide the listeners like what do you see with those type of, operations and, where do you see that kind of, evolving as far as, just, in your kind of future planning, if you will?
Thank you, Wes, for the question. You know what? People ask me this all the time. There's a difference between an MGM and a tribal casino because the pure size and magnitude. But of course, there's a lot of tribal casinos now larger than MGM. But I think that when you take a look at the mere size of a casino, I have a tendency of ignoring it, and I'll tell you why. Because you have a subset, you have a property or multiple properties, whatever environment that you're operating on. If there's one piece of advice I get to anybody, be great at something. Don't try to be great at everything, but if you're going to be great at being customer centric, people will love you for that. Because at the end of the day, it's called preponderant play. It's the play where people are most comfortably to wager their wallet and their entertainment experience, mainly mostly close to home. Yes, they'll make several trips if they don't live in Las Vegas. They'll make a trip to Las Vegas. You're not going to stop that. But what you want to do is win that customer's heart and wallet over in your particular jurisdiction. And it's the one thing in life that's going to really matter to them. And that's the type of experience and the products that you're going to deliver to them each and every time consistently over and over again. That's successful, and you repeat those success many times over. And you got to be able to make sure that you're following through on your promises. That's how you win it. Promises and commitments work.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a good point, and I think that's a kind of a good segue into my next question is, you know, you've worked with various sizes all across the country, and so when you're working in Indian country, what are some of the things that even non-Indian gaming operations, just from a culture standpoint, when you're working with your teams and you're trying to develop and motivate them and push them, what are some keys that you've identified to really be effective and help grow properties or even grow your internal team members?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think what really matters is it's not really about being right all the time. It's being effective in producing the intended outcome of the results that you expect. And it's like a football team or baseball, any professional team. It's all about the team approach. Everybody has to be on the same page with the same common goal, same common direction. And they really need to know what that goal is. Now, this may sound a little bit odd, but it's not the light at the end of the tunnel that you're driving for. It's the experience as you're going through that enamors you and the guest, because you can't repeat those successes over and over again unless you know what success looks like. So I think people need to take the time, smell the roses as they go along, but also learn to be effective, right?
Mhm.
And how to be effective, you got to have the team. Everybody matters. Everybody counts. Because if one guy drops off or one gal drops off, like in food and beverage, the experience is bad there and the rest of the experience is good, it doesn't complement the entire property. So it's like an orchestra. Everybody's got to be playing on the same page, same music sheet over and over again successfully. And those teams that are very well or oiled do very, very well, even in very harsh conditions. Or when I say harsh conditions, challenged locations.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I mean, really having a clear defined, if you will, objective that everybody can buy into. Obviously, um, it's not always a pretty picture, but at the end of the day, it's what's going to drive each team member to be better and to grow through for a specific goal. And obviously, I think in your role, it's either improving the client experience or really driving revenue to the property. So that's pretty cool. Um, you know, just from some of your experiences, obviously we've had, the shutdowns and all that good stuff. And what are some of the things that, you found, um, effective either with an experience like that, which is, kind of once in a lifetime experience, and then also, just in times where maybe of a recession or something like that, what do you generally turn to maybe stabilize things, or I mean, obviously there's a million different variables, right? You as a CEO are dealing with that every day, but just what are some of the general guidelines that you kind of look for in those times of economic uncertainty, or what is that? What does that look in your view?
I always view it like, you know, you build a day, build a week, build a month, build a quarter, build a year, but build it very effectively. And I think the problem with a lot of things that people set these plans out, they don't have anything to course correct, right? So let's say you're on plan or on track. Always take the 80-20 rule that 80% we're cruising along the path, and you got to be a very prudent leader. You got to really, really be in tune to the market conditions, and you got to be able to say, when do you have to course correct? People call continuous improvement. That's great, but continuous improvement doesn't get you there alone. You got to really be shrewd and say, okay, if you're going to have continuous improvement, what does that course correction look like for the rest of the 20%? And that's what really matters, because that's what's going to take you across the finish line. It's going to help you be agile, nimble. It's going to be make you very agile moving forward. You're like an acrobat, right? So when I see companies or teams not having that course correction, they're just waiting for the end of the week, because they have the month say, oh, we did well, we didn't do well. You don't wait. You got to be able to course correct day by day, week by week, month by month. And that's how I look at it, because that's what really running a shrewd business is all about: being able to unilaterally and collaboratively course correct in your suitable method of
Yeah.
operations.
Yeah, I know. You must come from an accounting background because you got the 80-20 analysis down. So that's something we always,
Yeah,
right, Josh?
it's kind of funny because when I started off in financial accounting reporting, you learn controls, you learn compliance, but one of the things I learned very, very well from an old timer was all those things really matter. But you know what? We got to make sure that we're writing written systems and internal controls. We got to make sure we're writing our policies that's very efficient but effective for the enterprise. Because you know how it is, you overregulate something, and you're successful at what you regulate, but it hinders operations. That's what we're not about, right, Wes?
Exactly. That kind of segues great into the next question. Is this? I know that you're a guy with a lot of ideas and different things you're consistently thinking about, and which all revolve around operational improvement, and how do we consistently turn that little marker 1% per day, per week, whatever. you know what type of technology or systems are you kind of really excited about for the future?
Well, I'd like, first of all, I always say innovate, 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 and don't stop innovating. But while you're innovating, take a look at what's out there. AI is a perfect example. I think that, people view it sometimes in a different collateral way, but I look at it as that you can really move the needle forward on AI if you really spent enough time and energy to make it, very, very successful for the organization. But if the organization that just stops innovating is the one that's really going to be left behind. You mean even McDonald's? You look at McDonald's, you look at Apple. Everybody's always evolving with new innovation, and the the properties, their teams, these entities, if you stop innovating, you just can't move the needle forward. So I encourage properties, I encourage people to take a look, take a step back. Always, you got your, like I said before, you build a plan, build a day, build a week, build a month, but make sure that plan includes some innovation, whether it's going to be, outside the box thinking. How do you really make an idea come together? And that's where I think a lot of teams fall apart, because an idea is an idea, but when you got to unilaterally work a plan to make it come to reality. And many great minds matter because everybody's feedback, when you get everybody together in a room, magic happens. So I think that's the beauty of it, right? Apple computer stuff, Steve Jobs had an idea, right? But he's got thousands of engineers that made it happen, right?
Yeah.
So the credit goes to, a lot of the players. Like I always say, I like NFL. I respect the MVP awards and all that. But if it were me, rather than give the MVP award out to a single player, I'd give it out to an entire team, because it took a team to move that football across the line. Not just the quarterback, not just the halfback. It took the team.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah. And I think that's a great mindset to have. A lot of time is you either get complacent or, you try to get, constantly putting yourself in those uncomfortable positions to basically grow, right, at the end of the day. And
Right.
that's a big thing. And, I think we had some couple conversations of that, and I really, really
Yeah.
appreciate that. And that's been pretty good. And, obviously when you're brought to your desk, um, different technology or games that are in place now. Um, how do you, balance that with, I mean, obviously that comes with experience that you have, but how do you um, balance that between, your team's development, whether or not maybe they know how or what that game is, just different things like that. What do you generally kind of try to measure if you can?
Well, I think, smart measurable goals is always the way to go about it. But I think making sure that you have the right crucial conversation, right dialogue with your executive team, because, I always say with clarity and distinction, if they don't understand what the intended goal is, then it's my fault, because the tone always gets set at the top. And I think it's very, very important for an executive, any member of leadership, doesn't matter what level you are, to understand what the goal is, what the direction is, and how to get there. And the how to is more complicated, because that's what's left out of a lot of meetings, right? Everybody walks out of a meeting, they say, okay, this is the goal, this is the objective, but the how is not really defined. So, as being accountants and former accountant, we like processes. And I think articulating those processes that move the needle forward is what really, really, it's the devil in the details, right?
Hmm. No, that's
So that's how I do it.
yeah, no, that's a really good point. I think it's something that, when we're running projects, you just, give somebody something you kind of expect, hey, get it done. But then it's like, okay, well, you didn't give them right direction, the opportunity to really kind of set the path, the clear expectation and all that. And, and then it doesn't get, you know, completed the way it should be. And, I'm glad you brought that, to the discussion today. So quick question for you then. You've been around very successful properties, and you've been able to, provide, some value to those properties, and really, put your input in and, turn some around, beyond just the gaming experience. Um, where do you see some, possible non-gaming, amenities or experiences, coming along to, what's kind of the trend outside of that? What I mean by that is, through obviously the gaming interest, what can that translate into as far as non-gaming experiences, if you will?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because one of the things about gaming, I've always started off in this business that was very gaming centric. Everybody was always trying to promote slot tournaments, table games, slot product, table games products. I think the driving force really is getting creative, right, and really thinking outside the boxes. What non-gaming amenities could drive people to the property? For example, we put on in one of our properties a 12-inch so big burger. I mean, it's just gigantic. The goal is not to sell a lot of the burgers, although we are selling a lot of them, but it's that, oh my God, look at this burger. Look how big it is. I can't believe it. It's that thing that ingrains in their minds, that experience. Remember, the beauty about an experience is an exceptional memory of a lifetime. You always remember experiences. If you don't give the customer an experience, gaming or non-gaming experience, they have nothing to draw upon. So I always strongly say to people, when you're trying to develop properties, you're trying to develop anything, there's always, whether it's gaming or non-gaming, you got to figure out what's that touch point. What do they really want, and how do you really enamor them? I mean, there's a hamburger out there for everybody. There's many hamburgers, but there's no so big burger, right? There's many things that are out there. I mean, but the real question is, what's really going to enamor you to walk in that property and say, wow, this really hit me, knocked me out because I'm so gratified to be here. So those are the type of experience, and I've many of those things that we've created throughout many, many years, because it's bringing that experience that that customer still walks about. For example, like, here's one small example. People used to say, what's the beauty of customers taking things in the hotel rooms? Now, think about this for a month. In the old days, everything was branded. Now everybody's trying to cost and save money, and they got these third-party brands in the room. So customer takes home terries, towels, soap, shampoos, and they're all branded with somebody else's name on it or company's name on it. They don't have any experience to draw upon. If the shampoos are not branded to the company, then they got shampoos in their bathroom. There's nothing to give them a recall. So that's why I caution people. Branding is very, very important. Positioning is important, and how you do it. I'm not saying you don't have to go out and brand every, conditioner, shampoo, body wash, but I'm saying those are things to really think about to get your message across. Those are non-gaming entities, but the beauty is called getting your home mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once upon a time, there was a restaurant I operated, right, as part of many restaurants. Every customer walked out with a can, a logo can, a nice, about an 8-ounce can of granola made by the chef. And the beauty of that was, it wasn't the expense of it, is because when they sat down and ate breakfast, oh yeah, we had this beautiful dining experience. The chef made this, and we got it. And they keep eating it, and they keep remembering it. So that's what's really, really important, is the beauty of always remembering, the product line that you're servicing, and making sure that you have compelling, customer-centric experiences for the guy.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right, man. I mean, my sons are always asking me, "Hey, can we get that burger again?"
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah, yeah.
definitely, yeah, that definitely, burned a hole in their mind, so they remember it. So that definitely works.
Yeah, well, we're going to launch a few other things related to that idea, but again, it's when you take a look at it, what does the customer really wear on a daily basis, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're offering Mamadou shirts. Mamadou is one of the largest basketball players in the history. He's like over 7'6" tall. So the idea came across, we're going to give customers his t-shirt, right? We're not going to supersize it down, small, medium, and large. His t-shirt. Some of them is just, if somebody puts it on, it's going to drag to the bottom ground, but it'll have our logo on it, have Mamadou on it. So we link those experiences. They go, wow, this is crazy. Where'd you get that t-shirt? Because I want one.
Yeah.
No, it's not a Mumo. It's an oversized shirt that if I put it on, it'd probably hit the ground, because my head only comes up to his shoulders. That's it. So, you know, and then, it's kind of like, Mike Tyson. When Mike Tyson goes out there, he's a very personal individual. He loves signing boxing gloves, and he loves talking to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people can't get that experience out of their mind. So those are the compelling moments, those defining moments that really make a difference in someone's life.
Yeah. No, that's definitely a good point. And having that experience, yeah, you're right. I mean, because for me, to be honest with you, I mean, I'm a guy that's like always thinking about technology and whatnot, but then actually being present and experiencing things that could probably be 10 times more valuable, for anyone doing and operating an enterprise like yours and what you do. That's pretty cool. Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, so the obviously the gaming industry is transforming, pretty rapidly, and I know you're constantly trying to think of things and staying on top of things, and where do you see that in the next 2 to 3 years? Specifically for travel gaming. Is that I know that you probably sit down and brainstorm with your management team, or they bring things to your attention? I'm just kind of curious, what do you feel tribal gaming is going in the next 2 to 3 years?
I think, like I said, Wesley, I think that one of the things I've said this often is that sometimes we're behind the 8 ball on some stuff, even though we have access to all the greatest technology in the world. We can afford a lot of it. But I'll give you an example. Like you take, for example, like if you ever been on a cruise ship like Princess, right?
Hmm.
From the moment you land on it, you have a lanyard. You don't have to break out your wallet. Everything is paid for whatever end you go at. It's one-stop shop. All the systems are integrated. In tribal gaming, what happened as things evolved, as new systems evolved, there's a lot of these third party bolt on to these things, the technology. I call them technology inhibitors, right? They just slow things down. Yes, they work, but is it fully integrated? No. I think the entire industry needs to focus, just like the cruise ships, we're not reinventing it. One stop shop. The moment you land on that property, we can identify who you are through geofencing. You want to go spend your money in the cafe, you never have to show your wallet. You go to a machine, you got follow me points, right? You go to table games, right? You want to do a comp redemption on a table game. We could do all that. And I think integration and making smart technology work for us that betters the experience of the customer, and it betters the experience for us. It makes us more profitable, and it streamlines our operations because there's nothing better than a well-oiled system, right? Just smooth, right? Runs absolutely smooth. So I think that's where the next couple of years we need to get to, because as technology keeps evolving, especially on cashless, all right, system integration is going to matter. We're going to reduce our capital expenditure. If we're going to reduce our capital expenditure, how are we going to continuously make that customer say, wow, this is great?
Right, right. No, that's a good point. I think, those were some of the discussions, that were brought up, is just, cashless. What are we gonna do with that? And I think you're right. How are we gonna, the other day we went to a basketball game, right? And you don't even have people um, serving there. You just kind of tap your card and it puts it in place, and then you go into this little mini mart thing, and then you walk out, and that's it. There's a, you kind of have that seamless type of experience where it doesn't, it's not clunky. It's just pretty quick. You go in, you go
Right.
out. Yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think that's that smooth component that really will attract a lot, and
And Wes,
what,
back in the old days, you remember when well, I don't want I'll probably give up my age saying this, but we had to prepare the PBCs, if people remember what those are.
yeah.
I got a dear friend of mine, he's still in the financial accounting world, and the old days it would take us 2 to 3 weeks to prepare those things, right?
Wow. Yeah.
He was so happy and delightful. He said, "Man, 35 years ago," he goes, "now I can push a button, one button, I can prepare all the PDCs in a matter of a minute." I said,
Yeah.
"Well, I said you solved a lot of problems, but you're probably bored now." So,
Yeah, it's true. That's so true. You're absolutely right.
so
That's
yeah,
changed for even just, in my tenure, things have changed a lot, especially with
right.
technology and stuff. So, well, hey, John, as we come to a wrap up, it always like to close out with, in your mind, the next, aspiring, CEO, or, executive leader that's really thinking of, making the jump, or making, the effort to get to the same position that you are. And so, like, to leave, what's some of the advice you would give to them, so that, they can get to, where you're at, or, experiencing, the same level of success you've had.
I think a couple of key important things that they should pay attention to. I know it sounds really weird, but learn what not to do. I mean,
Mhm.
it's clearly prevalent everywhere around. So when you learn what not to do, you take what those not to do's and making sure that you make it bigger, better, faster, grander, stronger, smarter in all aspects. I think it's important, though, as if you're going to be a CEO, you just got to learn how to make others successful, not just yourself, because there's nothing greater in the entire world than someone going home to their family, themselves, and saying, wow, I feel very successful and very happy about my job, because making someone successful is the greatest thing in the world that you can do as an executive, because if you make them successful, the successful will flow your way as a CEO and to become even greater heights. So I think that's really, really paramount. And not, not engage in the small talk. I mean, gossip, all that stuff. It doesn't do anybody any good, right? And if you can't say anything nice about somebody, then always say something nice about somebody, right?
I like that.
So that's the key about it, is that love everybody around you. And I know it sounds really weird, but it's just, you just got to love people. You got to make sure that, you love them like family, and they'll feel it.
Right, right. No, that's a good point. Well, thank you, John, so much for jumping on. I know you're very busy, and I really appreciate your time. Time is the most important commodity we have, and I really appreciate you, taking the time to share some of that experience, with us and our listeners. And, just once again, yeah, John, for all you do, and thank you for sharing your experience and to our listeners, and, all the good blessings to you moving forward.
Well, thank you for having me on. This has been very exciting. I love it. Let's do it again, Wes.
All right, man, for sure, for
All
sure,
right.
for sure.
Take care, you guys.
Thank you. All
Bye
right.
bye.